Okay, so ready to dive into some seriously mind-bending stuff? Like, ever think about just printing out dinner? Or that gadget you've been wanting?
Ah, yeah, talk about ultimate convenience, right?
Mhm.
Like the replicators they have in Star Trek make anything you want out of thin air, practically a cup of tea or medical scanner, bam, it's
Yeah.
there.
Right. And that's what we're getting into today. How close are we to actually making that sci-fi tech a reality?
We get some audio clips from this show. Getting to Star Trek, they break down the actual science behind some of these Star Trek concepts.
I love that show. They don't just talk about gadgets. They actually look at like what would happen to society if we had this tech. The economic side of things, gets deep.
Yeah, they do a great job of setting the stage. So basically, a replicator would be like a super advanced 3D printer, but instead of needing materials like plastic or whatever, it just uses pure energy.
So wait, it's not just putting pieces together. It's like creating the actual matter out of energy.
Exactly. That's the wild part. The implications are huge. Imagine a world without scarcity. You need food. Replicate it, a new tool. Replicate it.
That's actually something they bring up in the show too. Like, how would our economy even work if you could just replicate anything you wanted? Would money even matter anymore?
It's a good question, right? Like what becomes valuable when everything is so abundant?
Mm-hmm.
The show talks about maybe value shifting from stuff to experiences, knowledge, or personal growth.
Right. So instead of a big house full of fancy things, you'd want like amazing adventures or to master a skill.
Exactly. And the show dives into the work side of things too. Like if you don't need to work to get stuff, would anyone even have a work ethic anymore?
I can see that being a worry, but they use artists and musicians as an example, right? Those people create because they love it, not just to make money.
Right. They're saying replication could actually free people up to pursue their passions,
Yeah.
and contribute to society in ways they actually care about.
So instead of just working to survive, we could work on things that actually make a difference. That's pretty cool.
And that shift in thinking could go way beyond just Earth, too. Getting to Star Trek talks about how replicators would be crucial for space travel.
Yeah, I can see that, like, you wouldn't need to pack a ton of supplies, just replicate what you need once you're out there.
Imagine like deep space missions that used to be impossible because of logistics,
Yeah.
Food, water, tools, all that. It would all be way more doable.
We could actually reach those far-off planets we've always dreamed of, but wouldn't all that replicating take a ton of energy?
For sure. And that's where another crazy concept comes in the show. Talks about the need for these super powerful energy sources. They mention something called 0-point modules from the Stargate series.
Those are like insanely powerful energy sources,
Yeah.
right? Tiny, but can provide a crazy amount of power.
Yep, man. The show suggests that kind of energy tech would be key, not just for replicators, but for all sorts of futuristic advancements.
So we're not just talking about replicating stuff, we're talking about replicating the energy that powers everything.
Right. And I think there was one more mind-blowing thing. They brought up something about manipulating gravity.
Oh, yeah. They said that if we had near limitless energy plus replication tech plus the ability to control gravity, it would be a total game changer for humanity. Like, we can't even imagine the possibilities.
Yeah, it would be a whole new chapter for us.
It's almost overwhelming to think about the scale of change we're talking about, but it's also exciting to think about what we could achieve.
It really makes you reconsider what's truly important and valuable.
It really does make you think, like, what would even be considered valuable anymore? If anyone could have a diamond necklace, would it still be a big deal?
Yeah, that's something the show brings up too. They suggest maybe our values would change. Instead of wanting stuff so much, maybe we'd value experiences more, or knowledge, or just personal growth.
So instead of like collecting a bunch of things, it would be about becoming a better version of yourself. But there would still be limits to what you could replicate, right?
Well, the show mostly talks about replicating objects, but they do touch on the idea of living things. Could you replicate a pet? Or a whole rainforest?
Yeah.
Where do we draw the line ethically?
That's a tough one. And what about things with historical significance? Like if you could replicate the Mona Lisa, would it be the same as the original?
The show says probably not. Like the replica would be identical physically, but the original would still have its history and, the cultural context.
So it's like the difference between a copy of a letter and the actual handwritten one.
Exactly. The value isn't just in the object itself, but in its story and its authenticity.
That's a really interesting point, but it makes me think about the practical side of things. Like, who would control this technology? What's stopping someone from replicating something dangerous?
That's a big question. And one the show doesn't really answer, but it's definitely something we'd need to figure out. Safeguards, regulation, something to prevent misuse.
Maybe like a global council or some kind of system that tracks and approves blueprints before anyone can replicate them.
Yeah, it would have to be a global effort for sure. And speaking of global, the show talks a lot about the impact on space travel. Imagine spacecrafts with replicators on board. They could colonize other planets without needing huge cargo ships.
It's like the ultimate packing hack, right? Just replicate what you need when you get there.
Yeah, we could finally break free from those limitations and explore places we never could before.
That's a pretty amazing thought, but also kind of scary. What kind of problems might we run into as we start venturing further out into space?
Well, the show reminds us that, with great power comes great responsibility. We have to think about the ethics of colonizing other worlds. And what if we encounter alien life? Plus, there are always going to be those unforeseen consequences, the things we can't even predict.
It's not just about the tech itself, but about using it wisely and making sure we don't overreach.
Right. As with any powerful tool, replication could be used for good or bad. The choices we make now are going to shape the future in ways we can't even imagine.
It's a lot to think about. This whole conversation has been full of possibilities, but also some serious things to consider.
I think that's what makes the show so interesting. It's not just about cool gadgets. It's about what it means to be human and where we're headed as a species.
Yeah, it really does make you think about what would matter to people, what would make them happy, if you could just replicate anything you wanted.
The show kind of dances around that, but they definitely push the idea that maybe real happiness wouldn't come from having a bunch of stuff anymore, but from things like knowledge or creativity or those strong connections with other people.
So it's not about what you own, but about who you are and what you put out into the world. Pretty different way of looking at things.
Totally. And that's why talking about this stuff is so important. Getting to Star Trek isn't saying they have all the answers, but they're getting us to think about these things, challenge our assumptions and imagine how things could be different.
It's like they're saying, hey, this might sound like sci-fi, but this tech could actually happen. So let's start thinking about what kind of future we want.
Exactly. And this isn't just a conversation for scientists or engineers. It needs to include everyone. Yeah. Philosophers, artists, people who make the rules, everyday people, all of us bringing our own ideas to the table.
Because this tech would affect everyone, right? It's not just about cool gadgets. It's about how we see ourselves, how we build our societies, how we treat our planet, and everything beyond it.
That's it. Getting to Star Trek gives us this glimpse into a future that's both super exciting and maybe a little scary. And it's up to us to figure out how to use this potential, how to face those challenges, and what kind of future we actually want to create.
So where do we even start? What can we do now to get ready for this future?
I think the first thing is just being aware of what's possible. Talk about these ideas with people, explore different viewpoints. The more we understand what this tech could mean, the better we can guide its development and make sure it's used for good.
So be proactive, not reactive, right? Be informed and actually participate in shaping what's to come.
Exactly. And don't forget about the power of imagination. We have to dream big picture, the world we want to live in, even if it seems impossible now, because those dreams, those ideas, they're often the starting point for real change and progress.
Well said. So to wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one last thought. If this replication technology really did become a reality, what would you replicate? What problem would you solve? What dream would you bring to life? Let your imagination run wild with it and see where it takes you.
I love that. Thanks for joining us on this journey. Until next time.